What up, Blurds? We are back. Wakanda Whiskey and Blurdom in the building. Our Friday late night happy hour where we drink whiskey, talk mess, talk Wakanda, talk our boy Black Panther, and just talk about whatever comes through our whiskey addled minds in Blurrdom. I'm your host, Paul, and with me always is my partner, Mark.
What's going on?
What's up, man?
Nothing. Just tired. Getting a later start than normal. So hadn't had any whiskey in me, so I'm kind of petering out until I get some juice in me.
You know, once you have your first drink, you're just going to fall asleep.
No, that doesn't happen. But yeah, ready to get started. I'm
What are we
tonight.
sipping on tonight?
This I sent you the link to it. It's a black-owned whiskey called Guidance. Had never heard of it before. There are a lot of black-owned whiskey companies. The most popular being Uncle Nearest. Um, if you've watched this any period of time, Uncle Nearest was his name was Nearest Green, and he was an enslaved person who taught an individual by the name of Jack Daniels how to make whiskey. And when the company was first founded, maybe about 7 years ago, there was a lot of publicity about it on social media and in the news. I remember seeing an article or a story on Dateline. I didn't mean Dateline, but the Today Show on NBC with Fawn Weaver. So that brand has gotten a lot of push, a lot of publicity. Since this is a black space, we were drinking whiskey for well over a year now. I've thought that we need to start highlighting black whiskey makers, and so that's why we're doing what we're doing. And as I said, I'm sipping on this one called Guidance that I'd never heard of. A small batch. I think it's in Tennessee. The guy's in Tennessee. It's got a very nice smell to it. It's very light. I don't know if you can see or tell, but it's got a very light color to it. It's got kind of a harsh smell to it. I want to say like lemon. The first sip is okay. It sort of reminds me of one that I've talked about a lot in the past, which I won't be drinking anymore, was Wolf Moon. Wolf Moon was a whiskey that I was drinking that was sponsored or promoted by country singer Jason Aldean, who's had a lot of controversy over the past month, 2 months, due to a song that he's got. So I decided I'm no longer going to drink that after I finish my last bottle. And this might very well be a good replacement. It's very light, doesn't have a lot of bite to it.
What was the price point on it?
Maybe about 50. Maybe about 50. I think it needs to be aged a little more. I think that might do it good, but it is not horrible. It's not bad. I've had some bad whiskey. This is not one. So if I was going to give guidance a ranking between 1 and 10, I'd probably give it about a 7 at this point.
About a 7.
Yeah, I'd probably give it about a 7.
Good morning to Afro SF Ians Comics 78. He's a new subscriber from the UK. Okay. All right, man. What part of the UK are you in?
Hmm. Yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad. Not horrible. Not great, but it's definitely not bad.
Yeah. Well, I got, you mentioned it before, um, Uncle Nearest.
Which
It's
I
probably
love.
one of the most popular black owned whiskey companies. Um, I went ahead and got one that I hadn't, a version I had not gotten before. I'd gotten the standard Uncle Nearest, but this is their more premium one called Uncle Nearest 1856. I've never tried this before, so it'll be new experience for me. And of course, I did not pre-open this bottle, so give me a second.
Uncle Nearest has, well, I've mentioned in this space before, but when they had the groundbreaking of their distillery exactly 4 years ago. This upcoming September, I drove up to Tennessee for the groundbreaking. And it's a very nice country up there, very nice facility. They've got about three expressions. There's 1856. I want to say there's 1848, if I'm not mistaken, and there's another one. I just don't remember what they are at this present time. But it's a quick
Yeah.
Google. But yeah, I do like Uncle. I do like Uncle. And the story, like I said, the story of how this company came to be is a very interesting one. And I'm sure you can probably just Google Uncle Nearest and Today Show, and I'm sure you'll see the article. I also want to say the creator or the owner was on 60 Minutes, if I'm not mistaken. So you can try
It's
that.
got a very sweet smell. You can certainly smell the caramel, molasses, almost a flowery smell too. Oh, that's smooth, buttery.
I haven't had Uncle Nearest in quite some time. It's been a
For a
couple.
100 proof whiskey, it's remarkably smooth. Um, it's definitely a step up from the normal blend of Uncle Nearest. This was about $48. I wouldn't put it in the high caliber whiskeys, obviously, because it's got a little bit of a burn to it. But I mean, it's just a initial sip, so I haven't had anything else to drink, so it could take me a second to get used to it.
If you're not a whiskey drinker, like a lot of whiskeys can have a very harsh taste to them, very strong taste. And I know it's an acquired taste in drinking whiskey.
This is
I
not a
had
harsh taste at all. It's quite smooth.
right. I had to develop that palate for drinking whiskey, and I can for myself discern what is good and what is not so good. There was a point in time when I thought Jack Daniels was good, but having drunk a lot or had a lot of whiskey, over the past 7 8 years, and then tried to drink Jack Daniels straight, it's just like absolutely horrible. It's like drinking water with a charcoal briquette in it. But I say that to say that if you don't want something harsh, you want to get into the whiskey game. I'm thinking that this guidance may be a good entry level whiskey for you. It's not that expensive, and the taste is not as harsh as a lot of whiskeys.
And I also say if you're trying to get into whiskey, what you might want to try is actually bourbon. A lot of people tend to like bourbon because it's a lot sweeter.
I'll
Um, as an
I'll
entry
disagree
point.
with that because in Irish whiskey, if you want some sweet whiskey, Irish whiskey is the way to go. There are three that I recommend: Redbreast 12, Jameson's, and the Sexton. Sexton. You want to talk about sweet? Those are the ones that you want to definitely try. But as far as bourbons are concerned, this guidance is a good entry level because again, it's not as harsh as some other whiskeys, and it's not like a peated Scotch or anything of that nature. So yeah,
Hey, frustrated fan in the house. Hope you're enjoying your vacation, brother. Thank you for stopping by and checking in. Afro SF says he's from London, England. All
Eden
right,
Greenford,
Ely
not
and
too far from
Greenford,
Wembley Stadium.
not too far from Wembley Stadium. That's what's up. I spent a semester in law school in Central University of Central London, right off of Tottenham Court Road. All
Yeah.
right,
Whenever I think of black Londoners, I think of Top Boy, the show Top Boy.
what's up? Enough respect to Brixton. Okay, so let's get into the books. Which book you want to start off with first this week?
So always go alphabetical. Let's go with Icon and Hardware.
Icon and Hardware. I'll let you do the alphabet because
Icon and Hardware. The book is cool. I'm not a fan of Hardware the character.
Hold
Uh,
on. Let's set up the book for those who haven't read it first.
with no spoilers,
No
actually,
spoilers. No spoilers at all.
It's
So if
issue number
you're
four.
familiar, if you are familiar with the Milestone universe, hopefully you are. You know that it's an all black comic book, universe basically. Um, in that the majority of the characters are characters of color,
As well as the
um,
creators.
as well as the creators. That originally started back in 1993 with some of the top talent in comics: Dennis Cowan, Reginald Hudlin. I'm sorry, Dennis Cowan, um, Dwayne McDuffie, Michael Davis, Derek Dingle were the founders, and they brought in a load of talent, which are some of the hottest writers and artists of today.
Black talent.
Well, not just black talent, but a lot of them was black talent. Um, so they've resurfaced Hard Milestone 2.0, and these are two of their top characters. Icon, which is, for all intents and purposes, I hate using analogies like this, but sort of an Iron Man type of character in the sense that it's a character who's a genius, an inventor, and he invents a suit of power. And he initially invented that suit of power because he wanted to throw a temper tantrum over the fact that his boss, the guy who mentored him, would not give him his piece of the pie. And so he started blowing stuff up in a fit of ridiculous selfishness. Ultimately, it's a redemption arc in that he realizes that he could be so much more than a spoiled brat and actually make change and try to help people. And he
When you say
becomes a hero.
redemption, are you talking about from the first iteration back in the '90s, or
Yes, yes. I'm referring to the first iteration. I'm talking about the original iteration. The Milestone 2.0 iteration, you're not going to get much of that backstory. It just wasn't as good as the original, to be honest with you. Um, Icon is, for all intents and purposes, the Superman type of trope character, in that he is an alien from another world with powers of strength, flight, invulnerability, amongst other powers. But the wrinkle is that when he came to Earth, he landed in 1840s
during
South,
slavery?
American South, and he became a black man. So he grew up through slavery in the South, and because he does not age like we do, he lives the entire African American experience from slave days until the present. He takes on a ward, a young lady, a teenager, named by the name of Raquel Irvin, and makes him his partner. And she takes on the moniker Rocket.
She is the Robin to his Batman, and this is in modern times that he takes this character on. Not back in the old days. He was just kind of living a very low key lifestyle or whatever, even though he had the power to overthrow the slave masters, but he didn't. That's a whole nother issue. But right now, in modern times, he has Rocket, who is his Robin to his Batman.
Dothver says, pardon me while I hit the like button. While you're here, if you're watching, please hit the like button, share it on your social media. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out. So anyway, um, Icon and Rocket, Icon and Hardware are usually diametrically opposed both in their philosophies and their styles. Um, Hardware realizes that he can come across some old technology from Icon's ship, that had been modified by Benjamin Banneker, the great inventor, into a time travel device. And he uses the device to travel back in time. The question you immediately come across is, what would you, black man, do if you had the ability to travel through time? His answer is to take on a personal goal of changing his own life, changing events of his own life. He was responsible for a huge massacre of people, that he wanted to change that. He also wanted to change some personal things in his life with his family without giving away any spoilers. But ultimately, he says, oh, I can do more. And he decides to get rid of slavery. I'm not going to talk about how he does that, but he gets rid of slavery. And for most of us, we think of the concept of, well, if we could prevent slavery, would you do it? And I would think most of us would say yes.
But here's the thing. Hold on, let me interject right here. When you think about it, when you this is going to end up being a butterfly effect conversation,
Right.
because if you get rid of slavery, understand that those of us born and bred here in the great old United States would not be here but for the fact of our ancestors being brought to these shores. So if he undoes that, technically he would be undoing himself. So,
Well, kind of. I mean, the way that when the butterfly effect in this story, without giving away the story, is not simply getting rid of slavery, but putting the Africans in the role of the colonizers. That was the whole point.
right.
So the idea that you wouldn't exist actually didn't happen because Africans still came to the Americas, but instead of coming in chains, they came as conquerors.
But think about it though, and I obviously I understand that point. But think about it logically. Your family comes from Jamaica. Mine is here for generations and generations. So my great 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 grandfather and grandmother probably met on a plantation somewhere in the South, right? If they are not on that plantation at the same date and time, they wouldn't have met to beget whoever is comes down my family tree. So you are in
unless
essence
unless
undoing
they
yourself.
came to unless they came to Alabama or wherever your people are from as conquerors and they met there.
But that's not a guarantee. I understand that, but that's not a guarantee.
I know it's not a guarantee, but for the purposes of the story, that's what happened because he still existed. There are certain people that still existed because the concept that they often have in science fiction is that time corrects itself. Even if you make a dip in the pond, time does not like to be changed and it will do whatever it can to fix itself. So, although there may be slight changes based on your ripple, ultimately over time, it will fix itself. Um, so, when he saw the effect of us actually becoming conquerors, the world changed in a way that still wasn't all that great, I guess, in his opinion. And so now he's going about trying to fix the world because Icon also realized the changes that he made. And the two of them are clashing over how to fix the world. Before I say my thoughts, I want to get your impression of not the whole storyline to date, but this particular issue.
I'm not a fan of hardware as a character. Um, the writing is fine. Reginald Hudlin, the great Reginald Hudlin, who had to be the best run on Black Panther, is one of the two main writers on this storyline. The writing is fine because it's making me have feelings about the specific characters, namely Hardware. Love the way that Rocket is portrayed, love the way that the ancillary characters are portrayed, but Hardware just seems like an asshole. I do not like him at all. And the fact that he's supposed to be an adult and the way that he's arguing back and forth with Icon over petty stuff is just annoying to me. Like, what type of person would do that? You understand everything that has occurred because of your actions, and you're sitting up here arguing with this dude over nonsense. I'm not gonna say it doesn't make sense, but it doesn't make sense. From a real world perspective, I just don't get it. Um, yeah, yeah, I don't like. I like the book. I'm enjoying the book. I do not like Hardware as an individual, as a person. Rocket, I love. Icon, I'm cool with. Static, I'm cool with. Who's also part of this universe. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have a different take on this. I have a different take on Milestone in general because, unlike Mark, I read the original Milestone comics. I
Right. I
have
did.
all of the original Milestone comics. And Mark doesn't have that background, so he's. It's interesting getting his perspective because he's viewing Milestone 2.0 as a from a very fresh vantage point. Um, I gotta say, I was not a big fan of this particular issue, and a large portion of to me this issue seemed very disjointed, and I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that they changed artists throughout. There's like four different artists, it seems
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
and four different art styles on this book, and it's distracting to me, very distracting. Even the writing seems different for those each of those different artists. I mean, there's two writers on this book. There's Reginald Hudlin and Leon Chills. I wonder if they traded off, like I'll do this sequence with this artist and you do the sequence with this artist. It did not flow right. It did not flow smoothly.
Yeah. I agree with that.
The transitions between the different art styles and different writing styles.
There are three
And
different
it
artists.
was tremendously distracting for me. I of the run, I've loved this run. I think the concept is brilliant. I'm the biggest Milestone fan you could possibly imagine. But I was not a fan of this particular issue. It seemed,
Disjointed was a good word that you used, and it seemed somewhat frenetic unnecessarily.
yeah.
Um, without going into specifics, but you're bouncing around from scene to scene and action to action. That there's no there's connectivity, but then again, there's not. But I mean,
It's almost like that the editor just slept on the wheel on this issue and didn't try to edit the book all that well,
yeah.
to be honest. So I love this series, but this issue was not a good one for me.
The series is cool. I'm enjoying the series. Again, I'm a huge fan of Reginald Hudlin as a writer, as a creator, as a director. I just don't like Hardware as a person. He's an asshole. So yeah.
All right, so what's the next one we're talking about?
Sirens of the City. Paul
Oh,
mentioned this book about a month ago, and at the time that he mentioned it, I hadn't yet picked it up. But because of his comments on it, I went and picked it up from my store. This is issue number 2. It's from Boom Comics. It's written by Joanne Starrer and illustrated by Kari Randolph. I'm really liking this book. I really like this book a lot. Now, as I was telling Paul before we went live, the inks in this book is mainly black and white, right? Now,
yeah.
typically that turns me off from books. I like the colors. I like the vibrancy of the colors. But the lack of color in these books is not a detraction. There are scenes where it's mainly black and white with splashes of color in it. I don't know if you've got any pages pulled up or whatever, but you see the blue right there. You see, let's see, some green right here. Paul hit me to the fact that this artist was an artist on a book called Excellence. I don't remember what title or what company that's from. Maybe DC. I don't remember. But that's a very good book as well, and it's black centric as well as Sirens of the City. This is about a young lady who is approximately 16 or so years old who becomes pregnant from this dude who's also a teen. Well, she has special powers. Let me back up. She's pretty much homeless. She was a ward of the state because of her power. She has powers and abilities. Her
Yeah,
parents,
just hold on. Let me stop you right there. In this world, there's a lot of world building here, and in this world, there are segments of the society where people have powers, and it's not just like mutant powers. It's like also like supernatural powers, and this is like known in their society. It's not like a secret or anything like that.
right. And so this young lady who really doesn't know her history, her background, her lineage, because of the fact that she was kicked out of her house at a very young age, doesn't understand or realize what world she comes from. Think Harry Potter. Harry Potter grew up in the quote unquote muggle world, not knowing that he can't that magic exists and he's part of a magical heritage. Same thing with this young lady. She and her kind are sirens, right? And they have certain powers and abilities. Well, the young man that she ended up getting pregnant by comes from a different sect who has his own powers. And think of a modern day, well, when I say modern, this is the 20th century. This book is set in the 80s. He comes from what would be termed their enemies, right? So this is somewhat of a Romeo and Juliet type story. It was also somewhat like the X-Men story. You got people with powers. You've got some people who look like regular folks who are up in the world living their lives, but then you have some who look mutated who live down in the sewers. Think basically the Morlocks of the 1980s and 90s in the X Men. The two individuals. What is her name again?
Oh, I know you're gonna ask me that. Layla.
Okay, Layla. And the her boyfriend or baby daddy is Rome, who goes by Rome. Right? They come from different sects of creatures who have different powers. Without going into what those powers are, the two of them should never have met and or interacted because of the fact again Romeo and Juliet, right? You think warring factions. And so they met, she's pregnant and she's trying to determine what does she need to do about her pregnancy basically being a homeless 16-year-old with powers. This book gave me a huge vibe of X-Men of the 90s and 80s with people living underground. It's again gave me thoughts of Romeo and Juliet. It's very well done, as Paul just said about the world building, the characters. It flows, unlike Icon and Hardware that we just discussed. I really like this book. It is a good book. We're two issues in, so you won't have much to catch up on. I don't know. Is this going to be an ongoing or is it a limited series?
That I do not know the answer to.
Okay. Well, listen. It's Sirens of the City is a good book. It is a really good book.
I have thoroughly enjoyed this book. What amazes me the most, I get from the very first issue, is the world building. I feel immersed in this world. Um, the fact that it's a backdrop of 1980s New York, you really feel that. You feel like you're in that world. Um, I thought Mark mentioning Harry Potter is a good thing. Elements of the X Men is in there.
Huge elements of the X Men.
Um, I mean, uh, in just two issues, I feel like I've been opened up to another world. I also think it's sort of some elements also remind me of the book that Kari Randolph first sort of came on my radar with, which is Excellence.
Excellent. Yeah.
A whole magical world that exists within our world. I can't say enough about this book. I'm enjoying it. I dig it. It's different,
Yep.
and that's one of the reasons I like it as well.
For the longest time, I was all about Marvel Comics, right? The big three are Marvel Comics, DC Comics, and the one that starts with the I, Image Comics.
Much.
Image is now at this point one of the big three because they've been around for over 30 years at this point. There are three large comic book companies. There are other quote unquote smaller comic book companies like Vault, like Boom, that are putting out good work. Sirens of the City is from Boom, and it is one of those that that is very good. And the reason why I like it, the whole purpose for this show is to highlight black creatives, black characters. When Paul and I were coming up back in the 80s and 90s and stuff, you rarely, if ever, had black centric characters, black centric books. This book is about black teens, right? Everybody around them is, of an ethnic origin that's not white. And that's one of the things that I like. And one of the things I just discovered tonight, about 10 minutes before we went live, is that the writer of this book is a white chick. right? But she's doing a phenomenal job. This is a very good title. On a scale of 1 to 10, I would give this book like an 8.59. This
Yeah,
is a very, very good book. So,
very
if you
dope book.
find it, I would highly encourage you to get it. Yeah.
All right, what's our next one?
Those are the only two books that I wanted to discuss because those are the only two Black centric books that I've picked up.
I also had, let me pull it up here. I had two other books I wanted to add to the mix. The first one I'm not going to spend a lot of time with. It's this one, Iron Man Annual 2023. It spins out of this whole Contest of Chaos storyline that's currently ongoing in Marvel. A couple of things. Mark and I grew up as Marvel fans. The majority of both of our comic book collections are Marvel comics. Been a diehard Marvel guy my entire life. I think I'm in a position where I can be objective enough to say a lot of Marvel books right now are just trash. They're just not that good. In terms of creativity, in terms of writing, and certainly in terms of artwork. Marvel is just, it seems like it's just kind of phoning stuff in sometimes. There are exceptions to the rule, obviously, but for the volume of books that they put out, a lot of this stuff is just, there are indie books that are blowing Marvel out the water right now, in terms of those categories.
The best thing going on in Marvel, to my opinion, is the whole Fall of X storyline.
And we'll get to that in a second. So I picked this up. I stopped collecting Iron Man a while ago. I was a big Iron Man fan. I am a big Iron Man fan. I have a huge Iron Man collection, but I stopped collecting them a while ago because they just weren't doing enough with the character. Just the same thing with Spider-Man. They're just not doing anything with the character of any substance. Um, this storyline that's going through the Marvel, this Contest case, I don't know much about it, but I know it involves Scarlet Witch. I believe it involves Darkhold, magic stuff that's running amok in the world and affecting people. Long story short, in this book, Iron Man and Storm are drawn to this spot in Mexico, this cave that has these crystals in it, and it affects their emotions. It brings out sort of their darker sides or what have you. And of course, hilarity ensues, and as all comic book standard trope, two heroes meet, they have to fight. And they fight. I question, there wasn't really much of a winner, so to speak. I guess you could say there was kind of a winner. I'm not going to spoil who the winner is. It wasn't necessarily like a definitive win, but I guess there was kind of a winner at the end. I think a lot of the limitations, they instilled some limitations by putting them in a cave. And as many of you know who follow Storm, she suffers from claustrophobia, and her power set does not work as well in enclosed spaces. So I thought that was a tremendous disadvantage for her because she's an Omega level mutant. Iron Man is tremendously powerful with that suit, but honestly, Storm in an open environment, she's like God level when it comes to her. When she fully unleashes her powers, she's usually holding herself back. The artwork on this was okay. Is it at the level that I would expect for a multi-billion-dollar company like Marvel? No. It amazes me that Marvel doesn't have top tier talent on all of their books because they're Marvel, but they don't get top tier talent. I mean, they oftentimes employ talent that is substandard, in my opinion, and I don't know why. I guess because they can get away with it, because if they know that a book like this is going to sell because they've got two top tier A level characters in it going at each other, and people are going to buy it just for that. And they can get away with not putting like the top writer and artist on this. But it was okay, but I wouldn't say that it's something that you have to run out and absolutely get. There
One,
was a cool moment that in this book where there's reference to T'Challa. Um, Iron Man jokes, "Yeah, T'Challa's my best bud. We're on Avengers together." And he's like, "I mean, I know you guys don't get along. I mean, you divorced the guy." And she says, "Well, we've reached an amicable agreement in our separation." And there's this moment where they're fighting, and Storm catches him unawares and does this martial arts move on him. He's like, "Where'd you learn that?" He's like, "My husband T'Challa taught me that." So that was kind of cool. This is probably something you can wait to buy.
scale to 1 to 10.
I give it a 6 just because you've never seen Storm and Iron Man fight against each other. But
I
it's
don't,
not something I would go out and pay an exorbitant amount. Don't pay more than cover price for this book.
as you talk about it, I'm sitting here thinking, and obviously I don't have an encyclopedic memory of everything that I've ever read, but I don't ever recall there being a situation where Tony Stark and Storm interacted with each other. I can't think of anything other than that. It probably has happened. I haven't read everything, but I can't think of a time that they've ever
Frustrated said he
interacted.
did not like this book, and he said Storm has been the biggest victim of bad writing. She has. Storm can be written tremendously well, but oftentimes she's written very poorly.
I bought, even though I haven't started reading it yet, but I bought the Storm title number two, volume two, after the one that came probably after the Hudlin, Eric Jerome Dickey run back around 2005 when she was getting ready to marry T'Challa. I think that one came out like around 2011 or so, maybe. So
Yeah.
I have that version. I just,
Pericles, sorry I didn't advertise this stream enough. We was kind of rushed together last minute. I've been very busy, and I didn't get to do my normal promo for the show. So it's kind of a popped up show. But I appreciate you being here. That being said, speaking of appreciation, boom, Blurred Forever, giving us £5. Thank you very much, sir. Cannot wait for the excellent Rodney Barnes to work on the Luke Cage book. Look, I'm very excited about Rodney Barnes working on the Luke Cage book. He's been talking about this for like a year and a half. The last two times we interviewed Rodney Barnes, I mentioned the fact that Heroes for Hire #1 is my birthday book. It came out the same month and year of my birth. So Luke Cage is technically my guy. And back when we were celebrating Luke Cage's 50th birthday, they're supposed to do a big Luke Cage book, and it didn't pan out. He got like a one shot thing that he got to do. But I asked him, "Hey, for my birthday, would you somehow incorporate me in the book, even as a villain or something?" And he said he would do so. He said specifically, "If I am ever given a Luke Cage book series to do, I'll put you in it." So I'm going to hold him to that. Rodney, if you're watching this, I'm holding you to that. Here's my likeness. Give it to your artist and throw it in the book somewhere. I don't even care if I'm in the background somewhere. But I need something I can show my mom and say, "Mom, look, I'm in a comic." But with that, Blurred Forever, thank you.
something I want to talk about real, very, very briefly. We were talking about Marvel, DC, Image, whatever, and we mentioned Boom. And I just did a quick look through my CLZ Comics app. If you're here, chances are you are actually a comic book collector. I'm going to highly encourage you and suggest that you download and utilize the CLZ Comic Books app. It helps you catalog your collection, it's very, very helpful. And so you have an ability to look through your collection in a variety of different ways. One of those ways is by a comic book company or publisher. So I just did a quick search of my collection for Boom comic books. I've got 56 issues of about one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight separate titles in my collection that are Boom comic books. Three of which we've mentioned here before. We mentioned Mosley was a Boom book. We've mentioned Berserk, which is a Boom book. Eve is a Boom book. And quite frankly, one of the best that Paul and I didn't discussing what I'm about to say now, but he and I during our regular phone calls have talked about it. Vicious Circle is a Boom book. Vicious Circle is one of the best comic books, in my humble opinion, ever written. Issue number 2 is probably by far the single best issue of a comic book I've ever read. It is
Oh my God,
phenomenal.
that book is
Phenomenal.
the
Story,
artwork.
art. Oh my God. Listen to me. A Vicious Circle. You've got to go to your comic book store. I'm sure it's closed now, except for old boy who's over in England. Go to your comic book store tomorrow on Saturday. There's no football on, so you can do this. Go buy issues 1 and 2 of A Vicious Circle. When you read that, you can hit me up on Twitter at ATL Blurred and say, Mark, you are right. That book, 2 issues in, almost better than anything I've ever read. It is phenomenal. On a scale of 1 to 10, it gets 136. It is that good.
Yeah, Mark is not overstating it. A Vicious Circle is that book. I mean, it's ridiculously good, both in terms of story and the art is absolutely fantastic.
Yes.
It takes months in between issues, but I'm willing to wait.
Yeah.
Because the quality of that book is so outstanding, it's
Yes.
worth the wait.
Yes.
It's definitely worth the wait.
And it's not a regular size comic like 8 by 10 or whatever. It's magazine size. It's really, really big.
Yeah.
And
it's like $9.99, but it's worth the $9.99.
Yeah.
It's one of the few times I'm not complaining about spending
really
that much on a comic.
It's really, ugh.
And with that, also, frustrated fans with the hookup. Thank you, sir. Really appreciate you, man.
Donation. It's a donation. I thought it was the trash. Don't be hitting on me.
Thank you.
One of the things that,
Yes, sir.
Thanks, John Fortune. One of the things that I've talked about before that I like doing is fan casting. Reading comic books, who would I like to see as an actor or actress to bring this character to live action? Yolande Knoll, who was in Insecure and the movie The First Purge, he's a good actor, right? But he doesn't get a lot of work. After The First Purge, that dude needs to have his own action franchise, right? He's on record himself saying that he wouldn't mind playing the new T'Challa, the next T'Challa, Black Panther. Personally, I don't see him in that role for a variety of reasons. However, this character in A Vicious Circle, yes, I'm still talking about it. I could absolutely see him playing the character in A Vicious Circle, whose name escapes me right now. That book is all of that. That book is very, extremely good. That's all I'll say about it.
Yeah. Now, we were talking about that Iron Man annual with Storm in it and the fact that Marvel's really just not doing justice when it comes to Storm for the most part. There's one exception to that rule. And that exception is X-Men Red. Written by Al Ewing, or more specifically, Al He Can Do No Wrong Ewing. Al Ewing is one of my favorite comic book writers. Period. Stop. Fact. Love this guy. He is a British. He is not related to Eve Ewing, just to clarify. He's a middle-aged white dude from England, and he's one of my favorite writers in the world. Um, this guy writes black characters with dignity, class, and respect, and I always big him up for that. Um, I'm not saying necessarily he gets an invite to the picnic, but I will definitely give this brother a plate with some aluminum foil over it. His writing on Storm as a character has been nothing less than spectacular. I buy this X-Men Red book, which is really a misnomer. It's the real name of this book, if we're keeping it a stack, is Storm and Her Little Friends. This is a Storm book. Don't get it twisted. This is definitely a Storm-centric book. She is the protagonist. She's on every cover. She is the leader. This is a Storm book. Everyone else is background characters. This book is more a setup of what is going to be a big throwdown between her and Genesis, the wife of Apocalypse. So we're clear. I'm constantly complaining about the fact that there are over 100 black mutants in Marvel Comics. And we only see about a half a dozen at a time every few years. And the only three you kind of see consistently is Storm, Bishop, and Sunspot.
Now Sync.
And now Sync. But over the years, those three.
Historically,
Sunspot, just those three.
Storm, and Bishop, yes.
Al Ewing, low-key, has created a crap load of black mutants that are sprinkled throughout these books. Now they're black mutants. A lot of them have different colors on them and stuff because mutants come in blues and greens and yellows.
And Rob.
But he's got low-key a lot of black mutants in these books, which is kind of dope. And the fact that you've got the goddess Storm going up against this elder goddess, ancient mutant Genesis, who's also black, is pretty significant. You haven't seen something like that before. And I'm here for it. It's well written. The art is fantastic. Fantastic artwork. And I'll tell you one thing about this book I really appreciated. Talking about this one character. Let me pull it up 1 second. I loved this page right here. So, as many of you know, the X-Men, many of the mutants in the X-Men were killed in the Hellfire Gala a week or so ago.
This is a spoiler.
And this,
if you're not
that's not a spoiler. Everybody knows that by now. If you're even remotely into comics, you know a lot of X-Men died in the Hellfire Gala.
If you're not up to date, yes, it's a spoiler.
Whatever. Anyway, so this issue takes place sort of 5 minutes after that. And one of the survivors is Sunspot, and he goes to Mars or Rocco and meets up with Storm and the rest of the mutants up there and tells them about what happened in the Hellfire Gala. And here's this panel. And Storm's trying to comfort him, and he's explaining what's happened. And, you know, all these people died. And he's like, his friend Sam, Cannonball, Sam Guthrie, his best friend in the whole world. The guy's like a brother to him. He's lamenting the fact that Sam is dead. Storm's looking at him and going, you know, who, Roberto? Who's responsible? He goes, Sam's dead. They're all dead. Who's responsible? And he looks at her dead in the eye, and he goes, some other dead people named Orcus. Like, understand, Roberto is the playboy, happy-go-lucky, I devil may care type dude. My boy just got serious. My boy just is like, you killed my boy. You killed my brother.
Sunspot and You got to understand, Sunspot and Sam Guthrie, aka Cannonball, go back to the '90s with the New Mutants. They've been boys forever. So, and I haven't read this issue. I have it. Um, as I said earlier in this conversation, the X titles are probably the best thing going for Marvel right now.
Yeah.
And it all goes back to Hickman's Power of X, House of X. Everything stems from that. The storyline with the Hellfire Gala and the Fall of X, which is going on right now. It is the best thing in Marvel. It is a multi-issue storyline. The whole thing with Sinister, all of that is really, really, really good. And the
Sunspot is so close to Sam Guthrie that when Sam got married, he moved in with him and his wife.
Okay, that's weird.
I know. That's how tight they are.
Who did Sam marry and when? I don't.
He married. What's her name? She's one of the.
Aliens.
No. One of the Shi'ar. What do you call those people? The Guardians. The Shi'ar Guardians. The Shi'ar.
Okay.
Geez, why am I drawing a blank on this? The group of superheroes of the Shi'ar. One of them's a woman from Earth, and she took on like the Atom Smasher role.
Okay. Gotcha.
So another thing about this, check out my boy's skin tone and his hair. I've been tweeting to Marvel. I've been tweeting to Marvel for a while that over the last couple of years, they've been following the movie trend and whitening Sunspot, straightening his hair, and making him virtually white, just kind of an off-white type thing. And I literally tweeted and tagged Stefano Caselli, who was Marvel's artist on X-Men Red, and said, "Dude, you're like one of the top artists in the world. I mean, look at this guy's artwork." And yet you're falling into the trap of changing his whole race,
basically.
And he said, yeah, and he actually responded to me. He said, "Dude, I totally know where this guy's from." And ever since then, Sunspot's been getting darker and darker and darker, and now he's back to where he's supposed to be. So I'm very happy with that. Finally made Sunspot black again.
There was a New Mutants movie that came out about 2 years ago, and I think it made like $36 at the theater. Personally, I had no interest or desire to see it because the character that they had playing Sunspot for one issue was this light-skinned dude. Now, he was Brazilian, but he would not be what I would term Afro-Brazilian. If you go back to New Mutants, and I want to say it was probably like in the first issue, one of the things that Sunspot, Roberto da Costa, had to deal with during a soccer match was somebody giving him a hard time because of his complexion. Live action, that dude who they had playing the character would not have had to deal with that. So, yeah.
In answer to your question,
the Imperial Guard, yes.
She is Smasher of the Imperial Guard, Shi'ar Imperial Guard.
Okay,
we have a question from Dothverse. He says, "Is Storm a descendant of Apocalypse in Genesis?"
Nothing.
I don't think there's been any allusion to that. Storm is a descendant of sorceress priestesses that going all the way back to ancient Egypt.
I want to say she's from Kenya, if I'm not mistaken.
She is from Kenya, but she has lineage that goes back to ancient Egypt that was actually revealed in the New Mutants comics when they went back in time. Right. And they met one of Storm's descendants. I think her name was Asake, something like that.
But to answer the question, nothing has ever been displayed or articulated that she is. All right, so listen.
And we got hooked up again. Blurred forever. Pity Priest no longer writes Black heroes anymore.
He doesn't write Black titles. Like, he's over in DC now. He's writing Superman Lost, which is very, very good. Superman Lost.
But they just introduced a new character, a Green Lantern character who has Black phenotype features, but her skin is red, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah, she's not an Earth Negro. No.
But regardless of that fact, thank you, Blurred Forever. And with that,
donation. It's a donation. I thought it was the trash. Don't be hitting on me.
Thank you.
Okay, we were talking
Appreciate
about family. Got a question for you. If you were to have the genealogy of any mutant, which family tree would you personally want to be a part of? The Guthries, the Rasputins, or the Summers tree? And I mention those three because if you read Marvel Comics and mutants specifically, those are some of the most powerful mutants on planet Earth. The Guthries have at least 3 mutant kids. The Rasputins, you've got Peter, basically Colossus. You've got his sister Magic, their older brother, I can't remember what his name is. And then you've got the whole Summers line.
Jamie.
Right. Who's got like reality bending
Reality
powers
bending,
or whatever.
yes.
Right.
In answer to your question, it would be the Rasputins because, well, I was going to say the Rasputins for power-wise because 2 of those siblings have reality bending powers, and then Magic herself has teleportation powers and access to limbo and magic, access to magic. The problem is dumb people crazy.
No, the only one crazy that is the older brother.
Yeah, but I mean, Ilyana is not necessarily. She's got kind of a dark side.
Listen, Ilyana is not really crazy. You know what I'm saying? So I wouldn't put her in that.
Ilyana is not someone I'd want to take to church with my mom.
You don't even go to church. But 1 out of 3 being crazy is not horrible. And the Summers clan, they're very powerful mutants. Typically telepaths, right? So you got
they're typically telepaths when their lineage is mixed with Jean Grey's.
Yes, right. Yes.
So it's really coming more from Jean Grey. The Summers brothers. Hold on, let me finish. The Summers brothers. You've got Scott, you've got Alex, and you've got Gabriel, and right. you've got the other guy that no one ever talks about.
There are only 3.
No, there's 4. There's a blonde one from the 90s. Something X. I can't remember his name. He wears his hat backwards. He's got blonde hair. Kind of looks like the dude from Sons of Anarchy. Anyway, all 4 of those brothers have projection powers, with the exception of Gabriel. Gabriel's kind of a telekinetic, right?
He absorbs energy. That's mainly his power. He's an energy.
Yeah. So they're all energy projection people.
Right.
The telekinetic and telepathy stuff comes from Jean Grey's line.
Right, but from his seed, though.
Well, yeah. I mean, only because the writers of Marvel have never had Jean Grey have kids with anyone else other than Scott Summers.
Correct. And
which is kind of that whole
that's part of the
putting the white female hero up on a pedestal type thing.
I wouldn't go that far, but it all stems from the white male Scott Summers family tree. So with that in mind, are you still saying that you would go with the Rasputins?
No, I was going to say I would not go with the Rasputins because they tend to go crazy. So I'm not really going crazy.
So you're going to go with the Summers line?
Probably the Summers line, yeah.
So if you're watching this right now, which family tree would you want to be a part of? The Guthries, the Rasputins, the Summers, or is there any other family that has 3 or more very powerful mutants in it?
John Fortune says Magneto's family
tree. Polaris, that's a good family tree. So that would be the Lynchers. So that's 4 powerful families. Okay, that's a good one. That's very good.
CGC says the Braddock clan.
There's only 2 though. There's Betsy and there's Brian. So that's only 2. So I wouldn't personally I wouldn't include them. But yes, the 2 of them are good, but there's only
that's
2.
The one that has they have Jamie Braddock. Jamie Braddock's the crazy one. That's the one I was thinking of when I was talking about the Rasputins.
Yes. So
Jamie
okay.
Braddock
So
is,
yes.
is the
Right.
reality alterer who's also crazy, just like
Right.
the
That is
Rasputin older brother who's also a reality alterer who's also crazy.
so basically the Braddocks and the Rasputins have an older brother who's rarely ever talked about, who's got reality bending powers.
And
Yes.
they go crazy. There's
Yes.
something about when if you have the ability to alter reality, you go crazy.
And you're the
Proteus, same thing.
and think about Legion. Legion was
Legion,
crazy.
same thing.
So do we want to consider the
Here it is. Adam X. Thank you, CGC. That's the name of the other Summers brother.
I've never heard of him before in my life.
Yeah, he was only in a couple issues. It's not a big deal, but yeah, he does exist.
Okay, where is he now?
He showed up about 2 years ago in an X-Men Legends issue. I never read it because I thought it was a stupid character, so I never bought it.
Okay. So we've got Guthries, Rasputins, Summers.
Heracles says either the Summers, the Guthries, or Clan Akaba.
I don't know who that is. But check it. So we've got the Guthries, the Rasputins, the Summers, the Linkshires, and the Braddocks. So 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 5 very powerful mutant families. Are there any other?
Afro SF says Summers.
Okay.
CGC
Are there any
says
other
Jane.
mutant families out there that have 3 or more powerful mutants in it that you could think of?
3 or more powerful mutants in it?
Yes.
How about Wolverine?
We got 2.
What do you mean he's got 2?
We got Wolverine and Logan, and not Logan, but what's his son's name? Daken.
Daken.
Daken. Okay.
Daken, X-23, Honey. Well, he considers her a daughter. She's a clone. Not really. X-23 was actually created with Logan's DNA and also the scientist that was part of the project. She took her own DNA, mixed it with Logan's, and created X-23. So in essence, it is a new person.
Okay, I wouldn't consider that line, but okay.
I mean, I can go over the genetic science of it from high school and explain to you how babies are made.
So that's 5. That's 5. Yeah, I don't consider Logan. I mean,
Pericles is explaining that Clan Akaba are the descendants of Apocalypse. Apocalypse 4 horsemen, those are his kids. With Genesis.
Yeah, we don't get enough information about them, so I wouldn't consider them.
Well, that's all in the. You talked about the Hickman run in
No,
X-Men.
I get that, but we don't have a long-standing history of these characters.
That's true. Blurred Forever says the Summers clan also includes Cable and Nate
Right.
Gray.
Right.
But
So
again, both those
very
characters, their biggest part of their power sets really comes from Jean Grey more so than Scott Summers.
The combination, that's a very powerful combination. Yeah.
I mean, it's, as I said, it's mostly Jean Grey because think about what their powers are. Cable and Nate Gray's is mostly telekinesis and telepathy.
Yep. But who they daddy is.
Now, Logan has an interesting line because there was a storyline in the Wolverine comic books where you found out that Logan's entire line actually comes from a character called Romulus. And Romulus is, for all intents and purposes, Logan's like great granddaddy. And, he's a direct descendant of that character. He's also, and he points out that there's a whole, I don't know, line or tribe of feral characters that stem from that line. It was a whole convoluted storyline. They never really emphasized and went back to it. CGC says Xavier, his sister, and his son.
Who's his sister?
The bald-headed chick who wiped out all of Genosha.
You know what? I never read or saw where that happened.
Cassandra, Xavier. What's her? I think her name is Cassandra. Cassandra Nova, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I never saw where that happened.
She was Charles Xavier's twin sister who's tried to kill him in the womb. It's kind of crazy.
Not familiar with that at all.
How about this line, Bishop and Shard?
There's only two though.
Well, Bishop had a daughter.
She got powers.
I don't remember. Bishop's daughter was his daughter with Deathbird. Her name was Aaliyah.
So wait. In modern continuity in 616?
That's always been kind of up in the air. I think technically she was an alternate reality version because
And
they
the
never
reason why I
brought her
said
up
that
again.
is because Deathbird was with Vulcan for a period of time.
That was afterwards.
So she's a groupie. Okay.
I think it was an alternate reality. Rancor is from Wolverine's bloodline in the 31st century. That's jumping way too far.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that.
What about this one? CGC says Nightcrawler's clan.
So you've got
Nightcrawler's clan
Nightcrawler.
is really
You've got,
Mystique's clan.
hold on, Nightcrawler. You've got his mom, Mystique. So that's two. Who else?
Nightcrawler has kids. Nocturne from Exiles. There's a new character called another girl.
And they've all got powers.
Yeah, they're basically all just other Nightcrawlers.
So basically, they all have teleportation powers.
Yeah, they all look like Nightcrawler.
Yeah.
Cassandra Nova, yeah, that's the name of Charles Xavier's sister.
What storyline was it when Genosha was destroyed? I don't have that in my collection.
I would have to look that up, man. I don't remember. It's a major storyline. Isn't Storm Bishop's grandmother? Well,
I've never
damn
seen
it. That was kind of alluded to in the Bishop Life and Times of Lucas Bishop, I think it was, a comic book where they talk about Bishop's origin. It was drawn by the great Larry Stroman. They did allude that the stories that Bishop heard from his grandmother about the X-Men, that she was Storm. I'm not certain that the quote-unquote grandmother is necessarily his blood grandmother. You know how Black people be with, having extended family and stuff. I mean, I don't necessarily know if that was his blood grandmother or just someone he referred to as his grandmother.
Okay,
but so they've walked away from that storyline.
So we've got the Guthries, the Rasputins, the Summers, the Linkshears, the Braddocks, and the Nightcrawlers.
Pericles says, can we count the Cassidys, Banshee, Black Tom, and Seren?
Black Tom is his not real brother, though, right? I don't think that's his real brother.
Are they cousins or something?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, they're like cousins. So you can.
They're cousins.
The Cassidys. Okay. Yeah.
In clarifying Nightcrawler's lineage, Azazel. I forgot about that. I was trying to remember who Nightcrawler's father was. Nightcrawler's father with Mystique was Azazel.
Yes. For those who watched X-Men First Class, he was in there in that movie, which was a extremely good movie. That was the best X-Men movie outside of X2. X-Men First Class was phenomenal.
X-Men First Class was well done.
Yeah, the rest of them maybe not so much, but X-Men First Class was the best of that iteration.
Except for the way they killed my man Darwin, which made no freaking sense.
Which should not have happened, yes. And the fact that they've got him getting ready to be Mr. Terrific, they've got.
I thought that was poor casting, personally, but
very horrible cast. Look, I like him as an actor. I can't remember his name. He's a very good actor. He's really cool. Way too old, and I just don't see him as Mr. Terrific.
Yeah, the fact that he's so old lets you know that they're not investing in him as being a franchise character.
Yeah,
I mean, you might see him in his one movie, but don't expect to see him in a whole
franchise or his own thing. Yeah. Horribly miscast, as well as Yahya Abdul-Mateen as Wonder Man.
Cassandra Nova, great X-Men run by Grant Morrison, even though opted not included any main X characters of color.
So when was this? Like, what titles are we talking? Because that's the one thing that I don't have is the whole fall of Genosha. I know the aftermath, and I've seen books with the aftermath of it.
Grant Morrison's run was actually called New X-Men. So look up New X-Men, and you'll see that run.
I do not have New X-Men. So how many? So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we got 7. But his ethnicity is Australian native. Yo,
Yeah.
The dude in Australia. But there's only 2 of them though.
Gateway?
Gateway and his son.
Manifold.
Right.
I think Manifold's technically more like his grandson.
Okay. So that's 2 of them. Is there a third?
I don't know. I only know about the 2 of them.
Okay. Gateway and Manifold. Okay. So they don't count. I would want 3 or more. Yeah.
Pericles says, I think Azazel's going to get retconned out as Nightcrawler's father. Why do you say that? I never heard anything about that. Oh, the actors that name who couldn't remember. Edie Gathegi was Darwin and will be Mr. Terrific.
There was a series that he was on Netflix that was very good. It was extremely good. And I'll tell you what it is here in a moment. He's a fine actor, but when I look at him, I don't see Mr. Terrific. You know what I'm saying? John Boyega, I would see more as Mr. Terrific than that dude. Startup. There's a series called Startup. If you can find it, I would highly encourage you to watch it. Startup is very, very good. And I want to say it was on Netflix, maybe Amazon Prime. Adam Brody also stars in it, who was like in the OC or something like that.
Pericles says, there's word they may be going with the original plan for Nightcrawler's parentage, Mystique as his father, and Destiny as his, what? Oh, okay, that would be wow.
All right, so check it. Mystique is a shapeshifter. And it never occurred to me until this message that when Mystique transforms herself into, she's biological female. But if she changed into a biological male, it would make sense that she had male sex organs. So,
could she procreate is the question.
Right. That's weird.
When she shapeshifts, does she also change her internal organs to the point where she could actually
create semen? Yeah, that's really weird. That's weird. And Destiny as his mother.
Normally I'd say that's absolutely crazy, but honestly, the way the X offices are right now, that's quite possible.
Yeah, I don't like that idea. I don't like that idea though.
True story. Bishop was supposed to be Filipino, according to Will's Portacio, creator code. Surprisingly enough, I believe the editor said make him black. That's absolutely true. Absolutely true.
I spent 2 years in the Philippines. Best 2 years of my life.
Uncanny Spider-Man may retcon Azazel from Kurt's dad. That would be a shame. I hate when they retcon stuff willy-nilly.
Yeah.
Particularly when they had a whole slew of comics on it.
Yeah.
So with that, we're going to take a short commercial break. There's a commercial here. I don't even know. Sometimes our producer, Derek, uploads videos in here, and I have no idea what they are. So I'm kind of doing what I should never do, which is rolling a hard 6 and playing a video. I have no idea what this actually is. So this will be new for me too. We'll be back right after this. And when we come back, we're going to talk about what Mark and I are watching on television.
Shout out to the Black Comic Lords for having me on the show, and also for being true believers in every aspect of comic books and nerd culture.
I'm Eve Ewing, and this is the Black Comic Lords.
Hello, this is Larry Fuller, the creator of Evan, with a shout out to the fine folks at Black Comic Lords. Keep up the good work.
Hey, I know it's me. This is OMG, and this is Black Comic Lords.
Black Comic Lords.
Yo, Black Comic Lords.
Black Comic Lords.
Black Comic Lords with your boy Lonzo Starr. Check in.
You're here with the Black Comic Lords.
You're here with the Black Comic Lords. Stay demented.
I am Professor John Jennings, and I'm a Black Comics Lord.
Black Comic Lords for life.
Let's go. BCL for life, baby.
Black Comic Lords.
Black Comic Lords. Follow.
Subscribe now. Yeah.
I don't know that I've ever seen Eve Ewing, but she's kind of fine. Eve Ewing is rather attractive right there.
She's married, man. Leave her alone.
I'm not messing with her. I'm just saying she's very attractive.
So that's what Derek's been cooking
That
up.
was a night. That was cool, and it was good seeing Patrick Foreman and Brian. I don't know if we're ever going to get more Black Cotton.
We'll see. Hopefully, they'll be able to work something out.
Shout out to Brian Hawkins. Shout out to Patrick Foreman. They were, when Paul and I first started doing this, maybe about 2 years ago at this point, Patrick Foreman and Brian Hawkins, the creators of Black Cotton, were one of the first ever creators that we had in this space. And, you know, very good dudes, like them a lot. Shout out to them. So it was good.
And from that relationship, we were able to have the Black Comic Lords were able to have their own exclusive cover of Black Cotton #6.
Yeah,
I think we're the first Facebook group in history to ever have their own variant cover of a comic book. It's listed on
got that
CGC.
whole stack, actually.
Yeah, we've been very blessed with being able to interview a lot of really dope creators, and I'm very
I've never
proud.
seen Jeff Thorne before. I didn't know that's what he looked like.
Yeah, Sweets from In the Heat of the Night.
I never watched that.
Let's see a couple of the comments before we get into the television shows. Pericles says, personally, I'd have made John Wraith. John Wraith, Nightcrawler's father. John Wraith. Huh.
So wait, is Mystique immortal?
Virtually, yeah. She doesn't age.
And so is Destiny.
Like Logan. Like there was a storyline with her and Logan back in the Old West.
That's crazy.
Louisiana Kid, Miles, and Prowler.
It's only 2.
Well, Billy is his sister, but she doesn't have any superpowers. She just gets like
that doesn't count.
Nice compilation. I dig it. That's cool. All right, so let's talk about television shows. Which one are we going to do first?
Foundation. Foundation is a sci-fi show. It's on.
No. Foundation's a black sci-fi show.
Foundation is a sci-fi show that has at least 2 black characters prominently displayed in the series about basically an intergalactic empire that is controlled by a triumvirate of clones of the founder of the empire. And what's cool about it is his name is Cleon. The guy who started this is Cleon, right? He was an older guy. So he cloned himself so that he has himself as the old guy, the younger version, and a child version. So it's Brother Dusk, Brother Dawn, and Brother
Day.
Brother Day is the one who controls the empire. Brother Dusk,
he's the one that's in the middle. He is
right, like the
around 40 years old or so.
40-year-old dude, right? Brother Dusk is the younger version,
the oldest one,
the older version, the guy
he's
who's
like
in the gray,
70s or plus
Correct.
years old.
And then Brother Dawn is the younger version. So what happens?
He's around 20.
What happens is you'll have Brother Day, who succeeds Brother Dusk, and when Brother Dusk dies, they decant or create another younger version of the clone, who then in turn becomes Brother Dawn. So it's a cycle of the 3 clones who learn and grow from their predecessors. Very good series. 2 of the characters in it are black women who we just discovered in this season. Are mother.
Don't give spoilers on their relationship.
Yeah, well, yeah. but it's very very good. Jeffrey Harris, I think that's his first name, Jeffrey, who was the son of Richard Harris, aka Dumbledore. If you watch Mad Men, he was in Mad Men. It's a very convoluted story about a galactic empire, but it's very extremely good.
It expands hundreds of years.
Yeah.
The storyline jumps from hundreds of years.
Yes. And two of the main characters, as I said a moment ago, are two black women, and it's very good. I don't want to go into it further than that. It's an Apple Plus show if you can find it. I highly encourage you to watch it. 2 seasons.
A lot of people of color on this show. It's phenomenally so.
Yeah.
I can't say enough about the show. This is high-end sci-fi. We're not talking pew pew whiz bang Star Wars type sci-fi. This is high-end.
It's cerebral.
It's cerebral. We're talking, Aldous Huxley, Olivia Butler. We're talking high-end sci-fi type storytelling. If you're into that, you would like this show. And quite honestly, for Apple Plus, their special effects and cinematography is as good as anything you will find anywhere else.
They put a lot of money into this show.
I don't know how much money they're spending.
Yeah.
But every episode is like you're watching a film.
Yeah.
It is film quality filmmaking.
For some reason, it reminds me of Dune to a certain degree.
Very much so. Very much so reminds me of Dune. I liken it to a cross between A Brave New World and Dune. It's like a cross between those two books.
What about Babylon 5? For some reason, that series, I never watched Babylon 5.
You never watched Babylon 5?
I've never watched Babylon 5, but for some reason, that series comes to mind when I think of Foundation.
Look, Babylon 5. First of all, let me back up.
Here we go.
I'm a sci-fi.
Let me apologize to everybody for even bringing that up. I'm sorry. I've had a couple of drinks. I apologize. Go ahead.
I'm a sci-fi guy. I'm a sci-fi guy because my father was a sci-fi guy. Some of my fondest memories from my childhood is watching Star Trek reruns from the original series with my father, watching Battlestar Galactica on Sunday nights with my father.
Battlestar Galactica.
Watching Space 1999. These are things that he and I used to bond over and watch, like all these sci-fi shows. And that's how I got into sci-fi. But I can and Star Trek was the best one. I'm a huge Star Wars fan. But as huge a Star Wars fan as I am, Star Trek has always been at the forefront of my sci-fi in my life.
It's the progenitor of all.
I love Star Trek. I got a Starship Enterprise right here behind me. I'm a huge Star Trek fan. That being said, the best written sci-fi show of all time on television was Babylon 5. Babylon 5 is the best written sci-fi show of all time. It's not even up for debate.
Let me interject here. Okay. You're saying that Babylon 5 is the best written sci-fi show, correct?
I said what I said.
Right. So you're saying it's better written than Star Trek the original.
Correct.
You're saying it's better than Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
Better written, yes.
You're saying it's better than Star Trek The Next Generation.
Keep going.
You're saying it's better than Battlestar Galactica.
Better written.
Better written.
I'm not talking special effects and all that stuff. I'm talking the writing on the show is the best writing ever done on a series. It didn't have the budget of Star Trek or the creativity in terms of that for the special effects and stuff like that. But the writing of the show is phenomenal. I've been rewatching the series for over the last few months. They're talking about an evil president who takes over their federation, who tries to use misinformation to solidify his power and raises a coup to become president and says, I'm going to use the military to stay in power and prevent this election from happening. This was written 30 years ago.
Was Walter Koenig, aka Chekhov, part of that show?
Correct. Walter Koenig was in the show. He played one of the antagonists, and quite frankly, his acting and his character development on Babylon 5 is better than it was as Chekhov in Star Trek.
Real quick, Walter Koenig, the actor, the real live actor, on Twitter was putting out an advertisement that he was about to appear at a con, and he basically said, I'm about to be at this con. Come see me before I die. I thought that was pretty funny, but okay.
Yeah. I know the show in retrospect 30 years later, as you watch it visually, the special effects. If there's a show that needs to be remastered, the special effects need to be remastered. It's this show. That being said, I think in the next few weeks, they're releasing a Babylon 5 cartoon, an animated film, with some of the actors from doing the voice of the original, characters. Tragically enough, the majority of the cast, that show was cursed. The majority of the cast of Babylon 5, the original cast, is dead. They've all died. The majority of them have all died under very weird circumstances.
Wait,
it's strange.
Wasn't Kevin Sorbo part of that show?
No. You're thinking of Andromeda.
Okay. I've never seen a second of Babylon 5, but now you're making me want to go back and watch it.
Dude, let me tell you.
How many seasons?
It's 5 seasons. You know what makes phenomenal about the show? They make references to things in the first season that show up in the last season, that show up throughout the show. Like, it is the writing, the writer thought of things like 5 years in advance. So little minor things that happen in an episode in one season will become a big deal later on in subsequent seasons.
As an aside, you say that, and that reminds me of the Harry Potter franchise, where despite what you may think of J.K. Rowling's thoughts and opinions on certain issues of modern day, her writing is phenomenal because she would have a throwaway line in book 1, but that throwaway line in book 1 or 2 becomes something extremely important in book 5 or 6. So I understand the concept, so I may have to.
Louisiana Kid was better than X-Files. Yes, I said what I said. Babylon 5 is the best written sci-fi show of all time. I've watched them all. It's the best written sci-fi show of all time. And with that, Blurred Forever.
He's basically got nothing to do in a fat pocket because he's gave us like 5 pounds, which I think translates to 636 American dollars or something like that. So
we appreciate you, man. Thank you very much. It helps to keep the lights on in this place.
That's a good idea. We should think about what our top 10 sci-fi shows are. Now,
top 10 for sci-fi shows.
Well,
I will list in no particular order because I can't think that hard. Babylon 5, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, a personal favorite from me and Mark's, Battlestar Galactica.
The first version, the original.
The first,
from 78.
The second one too. Look, it's a completely different show. I consider them two completely different franchises.
They are. The one with
that second Battlestar Galactica show was phenomenal. Phenomenal. It had you gripped every week to see what was going to happen next week. So yeah, Battlestar Galactica 1 and 2. Babylon 5, so that's 5. Firefly, 6. Some other sci-fi shows.
Does the X-Files count as sci-fi?
I
don't think it does, personally.
Yeah,
I wouldn't put the X-Files as
X-Files is more supernatural than sci-fi for me.
Right.
That's 6 right there.
What about Stargate?
No, I never liked Stargate.
The
Every
movie
time they
was
go
good.
to a different planet, I'm like, why does everyone speak English? That makes no sense to me. And they
Right.
never
The
they
movie
never
was good
fixed
though.
that.
The movie was real good. That's 6. While Paul is thinking, I can't think of every.
Well, you know what? Honestly, Star Trek: Strange New Worlds. I love that show.
That show is phenomenal.
That show is fire.
Very good. It's very good.
So that's 7. Star Trek: Next Generation. That's 8. I already said Deep Space Nine. The original series of Star Trek. That's 9. And I need one more show.
While Paul is thinking, for me,
personal favorite, completely random. I'm probably the only person that watched this show. Space Above and Beyond from 1995. So that's my 10. That's my top 10 sci-fi shows of all time.
All right. So for me, Battlestar Galactica, the original version from 1978 and 1979, whenever it was.
Hold on. Before you go into your list, shout out to Mark Robinson. Thank you very much with the super chat.
Donation. It's a donation. I thought it was the trash. Don't be hitting on me.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, man. Appreciate it.
This is really hard because I watch a lot of TV. I've seen a lot of stuff, so it's kind of hard to remember everything. But the first 4 that I come up with, for me, number 1.
I said I can't let this man from the UK out support us. Quantum Leap was good. Farscape was good, but they don't make the list. Eureka was good. I loved Eureka too. My dad liked Stargate. I could never get into Stargate. Although I did like Stargate Universe and Stargate Atlantis. You still thinking? Sliders?
No, I'm just waiting on you to
I'm going through everyone else's picks here. You got a top 10?
Yeah.
You said Battlestar Galactica. What else?
Battlestar Galactica will always be number 1 for me for a variety of reasons. Those reasons are this mainly. Back in the 70s when this show dropped, you didn't see a lot of black folks on TV in roles that were not drug dealers or subservient or whatever the case may be. During the first iteration of Battlestar Galactica, the second in command of the fleet was a black man. He's still alive today. He's like 90-something years old. He's alive today. One of the best pilots of the fleet was Boomer. He's still alive today, that actor.
Herbert Jefferson.
Yes.
Yeah.
Both of those black men were inspirations for me. So when Battlestar Galactica was rebooted in the 2000s, I was not as enamored with it initially, but it was a good series. So Battlestar Galactica will be number 1. Star Trek, the original series, is on that list. Star Trek, The Next Generation is on that list. Star Trek, Deep Space Nine is on my top list of sci-fi shows. But it's just really, really hard to think what are some other shows. I've seen what people have written. I heard what you had to say. A lot of the stuff that you've talked about, I haven't watched. Boomer was I would really love to meet him. Boomer was my dude. I loved Boomer.
Let me tell you something.
Love Boomer.
As a kid, watching Battlestar Galactica with my father, Boomer is the one. When you're a kid, you think about what I want to be when I grow up. One of the things I said I wanted to be was a fighter pilot.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for that was Boomer. Mm-hmm. Boomer was the first time I saw a black man as a fighter pilot.
Yeah.
And I was like, if he can do it, I can do it. He made me want to be a fighter pilot. He
was a co-equal to Apollo and Starbuck.
He was respected.
Right.
The 3 of those guys were like the 3 Musketeers. They were all brothers.
Right. He wasn't shucking and jiving. he was respected and revered for his intellect and his fighting prowess. I mean,
Right.
yeah. That was an extremely good question. So I'm going to have to go through a list of things and think about what are some of the sci-fi shows that I really, really enjoyed. I can't think of it right now.
We'll have to do a show where we pull down our top 10 and show them.
Yeah. But Battlestar Galactica, the original, will always be number one for me.
So Louisiana Kid woke up this morning and chose violence. He said Star Trek Voyager and Star Trek Discovery are the best Star Trek. So you're just going to overlook Deep Space Nine, the original series, and Star Trek New Voyages, Strange New Worlds.
Strange New Worlds is very good. So I'll put that in number five. Now, I'm not saying it's the fifth best, but it's the fifth series that I can think of. Strange New Worlds. Yeah. I didn't realize that the last episode was the last episode. I was upset about that when I discovered it because it ended on a cliffhanger. So hopefully they bring it back. I've never seen a second of Doctor Who. Ever.
Yeah, my dad watched some episodes of Doctor Who. I could never get into Doctor Who.
Yeah.
It just... I make allowances for the campiness of the times, but I couldn't get into Doctor Who. I just couldn't.
The latest Doctor is that black dude who was in that show on Netflix with old girl from X-Files, and he was in the latest Barbie movie.
Now here's the thing. Tyler Mumford mentions one of the things I mentioned, which is Space 1999.
Never seen that.
You never saw Space 1999?
No.
All right. This show was way ahead of its time. The concept of Space 1999 is that Earth colonizes the moon. They put a base on the moon, and Earth has their nuclear war, whatever thing going on. Something goes wrong, and nuclear explosion happens on Earth or something like that. The moon is blasted out of Earth's orbit. I don't know what type of scientific havoc that wreaks on Earth, but the moon got blasted out of Earth's orbit. It becomes, in essence, like an asteroid, a meteor hurling through space with this base that is on it, this nuclear-powered base. And they're traveling through space. They're traveling through the galaxy on a moon. And they're encountering other races, aliens.
What year did this show come out?
This show came out in 1971, 72.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that at all.
I mean, I was young. I think I was like 1 or 2 years old when the show came on, but I remember watching it with my father, oddly enough.
I have no idea about that one.
It was early 70s. You can watch the entire series on free channels on Tubi. You can even watch it on YouTube for free. Space 1999. So it was a well-written show. So the special effects you have to make allowances for because it was the 1970s, but they had some dope concepts. They had some high-minded science concepts on that show.
To add to my list, I will add Lost in Space from Netflix from a couple of years ago. Very good show.
Lost in Space from Netflix was actually a very good. They said don't do remakes. Remakes suck. The Lost in Space remake was actually pretty decent.
I actually liked the movie with Matt LeBlanc. That was a good movie to me.
I liked that movie up until the end. I didn't like the end of the film.
Well, I mean, it seemed like they ended the movie expecting to have a sequel. So
yeah, and that never happened.
Right, but the Lost in Space movie was good. I enjoyed that.
Okay, Blurred Forever is throwing the gauntlet down because he got called out and said, someone else called him out and said, I'm not gonna let some Brit outspend us here in America with the super chat. So he's thrown the gauntlet down, and for that, we must thank him again.
Donation. It's a donation. I thought it was the trash. Don't be hitting on me.
Thank you.
Does Land of the Lost count as a sci-fi show?
Lost count as a sci-fi show? I guess technically, yes.
For those who don't know, back in the 70s, there was a show called Land of the Lost, where a family of three, a father, son, and daughter, were on a rafting trip, and they went through some
It's like
waterfall.
Roger, Will, and Holly
and
on
they
a
basically
routine
ended up.
expedition.
Okay, don't do that. Stop, don't do that. So they basically ended up what would be the Marvel equivalent of the Savage Land or the DC equivalent of Skatars. It had
This was
Sleep
part of the
Stacks.
Croft brothers.
Right. So we're talking
Saturday morning television.
Between 1975 and 1977, somewhere in that time frame. Huge show for me as a kid. Loved it. Paul said make allowances for the costumes and things of that nature. I really, really liked that show. Will Ferrell was in a remake with Danny McBride in the 2000s. It didn't do well necessarily in the theater, but the original series I really, really enjoyed. So
Let me tell you something.
I'm gonna add that one, Land of the Lost.
1970s Saturday morning television
was the best.
Some of the best television ever made.
Okay, so you got to understand something. Back then, I was raised in Central Time Zone, right? So I was an hour behind Eastern Time Zone. When I woke up at like 6 o'clock, you could watch cartoons from 6 a.m. to basically noon. And then from noon to like 1 or 2 would be wrestling, right? But 6 to noon was nothing but cartoons and maybe a live action,
and the live action
show
stuff, right?
Here and there,
right?
Dino Woman and
Electro Woman and Dyna Girl.
Electro Woman and Dyna Girl. Right.
The Croft brothers, the Croft Superstar brothers, used to have these slate of television shows, live action shows geared for kids, that were interspersed between the cartoons on Saturday mornings. Hanna-Barbera cartoons. Tyler mentioned this. Thundar the Barbarian was the best morning cartoon. Them Hanna-Barbera cartoons, Space Ghost, Birdman,
the Herculoids,
oh my god!
What was the one with there was 3 of them, and they rode basically motorcycles, space motorcycles. The Galactic Trio.
Galactic Trio. Yeah, I mean, the 70s had the creativity is what gets me. The creativity they had on those shows. You know how all of our shows today are like remakes of something else? In the 70s, everything was original. And they had such creativity. It's like in the 70s, everyone was smoking weed or doing blow or something, and they just let their minds go wild in terms of what they wanted to create and just let it all hang out.
So Land of the Lost was on from 1974 to 1977. And yes,
let me tell you something about Land of the Lost.
So basically, yes, I was old enough to watch it when it was first run. The movie with Will Ferrell was on in 2009.
May I share something with you, Mark, that I've never shared before? It's only me and you here, and a couple of our friends. The Land of the Lost had antagonists called Sleestaks.
They look like the Gorns from Star Trek.
Very much like the Gorns from Star Trek. These reptilian, humanoid creatures that made these sounds that were like, it's just big eyes, claws.
Reptilian.
As a child, because remember, what years did you say that show was on?
74 to 77.
74 through 77. So I was between the years of 2 and 5 years old watching the show. Those Sleestaks scared the crap out of me. I had nightmares about the Sleestaks.
I get it. I was like 5 to 8. So listen.
Those Sleestaks kept me up at night. I would have nightmares about this. Let's move on. I can't talk about it. I had nightmares about the Slee Stacks. I did not like those characters. They scared the crap out of me.
Is Knight Rider sci-fi?
Technically, yeah. Knight Rider, 1983?
Roughly?
1982. Knight Rider started in 1982, I believe.
With a talking car. I'm not going to say this is in my top 10, but I'm going to add it to the list of things.
And Tyler Mumford is fighting back. He's like, I'm not letting the Limey from England out super check. Tyler Mumford out here trying to represent for the United States. Look, we appreciate it from everybody, man. Running this channel is not cheap, and we don't get paid money for doing this stuff. We pay out of our own pockets to run the channel. So we appreciate each and every one of you donating to help us keep this thing going.
Jason, not Jason and the Argonauts, but
Jason of Star Command.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Jason of Star Command.
Because Louis Gossett Jr. was in that.
Was he?
If we're talking about the same thing, hold on, because
I remember Jason of Star Command.
Hold on. Because there was a show that I watched, and basically the dude was, I want to say he was an alien. Okay, hold on. There was also a show that lasted a season called The Phoenix. Do you remember?
Hold on, you have a question here. Didn't they switch dads in the middle of the season on Law
Like
and
the
Lost?
dad escaped, and then the uncle
came in.
who was searching for the family ended up replacing the dad. So yes. So yes, Land of the Lost was a huge deal.
Oh, John Fortune mentions the show of the 80s.
Top 10. The original V is top 10. The original V is top 10. Yes.
Oh my God. V. Yes. Let me tell you something.
Yes.
V came out when I was, I think, in middle school. It was a epic television event.
Yes.
Everyone was watching V when it came out. Like when I remember going to school and everyone's talking about that show when it came out. People were like, because it basically ask the question, how would the world react to the knowledge that aliens really exist?
Okay, let me stop.
In the first episode,
aliens actually exist. You do understand that the American government during a hearing in Congress about 2 months ago, there were witnesses who acknowledged that there was extraterrestrial life that has been seen and that their bodies are being housed in some American government facilities. Life is out there, okay? But going back to the series of V, which was 19 episodes that starred Marc Singer, who was in this show called The Beastmaster that I absolutely loved. Marc Singer and John Amos, who was the father from Good Times, and a couple of ferrets. And not Tonica Tane, I don't remember who it was, but Rip Torn was the big bad in that movie. But V, the series, was phenomenal. Absolutely great. So
yeah, it really sort of
that will be top 10 for me. Yes,
it really sort of addressed how would our modern society react to the knowledge that aliens truly existed. I'm just talking about the first few episodes because you didn't find out how nefarious the aliens were in subsequent episodes in the season.
Right.
The first few episodes they really sort of dealt with that, and people were really talking about it. Like kind of like almost on the War of the Worlds level with Orson Welles, where they're kind of like, this is kind of a real thing.
Yeah, that's crazy. But this is something I'm going to be thinking about now for the next 24 to 48 hours.
Well, next show we'll talk about our top 10 sci-fi shows of all time. Jack Kirby worked on Thunder the Barbarian.
I had no idea about that.
What?
I didn't know that.
I did not know that.
Yeah, Thunder the Barbarian was basically a blonde Conan or a He-Man type character.
Yeah, very much leaned on Conan, but because excuse me, very much a He-Man, but he had the sword like a laser sword.
The Sun Sword. He had the Sun Sword.
Now, did that come out before Star Wars or after?
After, way after. Like, it was like around 82 or 83. So basically, Thundar was part of a world where a comet came
It was
through.
post-apocalypse world.
It was a post-apocalyptic world where sorcerers came to prominence after an asteroid interfered between the Earth and the Moon, put the Moon out of orbit, and that threw everything into disarray. He rode around righting wrongs with Ukla the monk and Princess Ariel, who have magic powers. Phenomenal show. I actually have it on DVD that I bought at a Dragon Con that I went to. But if you can find Thundar the Barbarian cartoon, it is very good. Very, very good.
Knight Rider has to be one of the best theme songs ever. Absolute fact.
There was no words to it, so I don't count that as a theme song.
Get the fuck out of here. Are you serious?
You're not supposed to cuss.
That was so outrageous. You forced me to cuss.
That was not. You're not.
It was such a dope song that Busta Rhymes made it into a hit song.
But listen, there was not any lyrics, so it wasn't a song.
A song doesn't have to have lyrics to be a song.
It was music. It was a theme, but it was not a song. Just like the A-Team, the A-Team theme. It's a theme, but it's not a song. Songs have lyrics.
Whatever. It was dope.
I'm not saying it wasn't dope.
Tyler Mumford.
Yes, $6 Million Man. Yes.
Oh my God. How did I leave this off the list? How did I leave this off the list?
I wouldn't put this top for me. I wouldn't put this top 10. Probably top 20. Yeah.
$6 Million Man is definitely in the top 20 of sci-fi shows of all time.
Yeah.
The $6 Million Man was one of my first superheroes. I loved me some Colonel Steve Austin. I loved the $6 Million Man. I used to pretend I was a $6 Million Man as a kid.
For those who don't know, back in the 70s, what's my man's name? The actor?
The $6 Million Man?
Yeah.
Lee Armstrong. Lee Majors. Sorry. Lee Majors.
Lee Majors. If you've ever seen the series Fall Guy, if you've ever seen the series, what was the Western series that he was in?
Not Bonanza. Great Big Valley.
Big Valley. Okay. Lee Majors was like a really big deal back in the day. He was married to Farrah Fawcett for a period of time, right?
And Farrah Fawcett, for those of you who don't know, was a famous actress and model in the 1970s, 70s icon who was famous in her own right for a television show called Charlie's
Angels, right? And you've seen this poster of her in a red bathing suit, which is probably like one of the best-selling posters of all time, right? Well, Lee Majors, who was a really, really big effing deal back in the day, played a guy who was an astronaut. And upon his return to Earth, his space capsule crashed to Earth.
No. He was an astronaut, but after being an astronaut, he became a test pilot.
Test pilot, yes. And then on a test flight of some type of machine,
it was an X-15 rocket. It was based on an actual real plane.
Right. It crashed. He was damaged, and so they had to rebuild him, make him better, or whatever.
They had the technology.
They had the technology to do it. They replaced one of his eyes, one of his arms, and both of his legs so he could run faster. He was strong in this one particular arm.
It was based on a book called Cyborg.
He was a cyborg.
They thought the word cyborg was not a sexy enough name. No one understood what that meant. Right. So they named the show the $6 Million Man.
This was how big he was. He had his own line of action figures, one of which I had.
God!
I had right now. But that was a sci-fi show. And the guy who played his boss, he died not that long ago.
Really? The guy who played Oscar Goldman?
Yes. He lived to a ripe old age. He died not that long ago.
$6 Million Man was that show.
Yes, it was.
I'm surprised they haven't remade the show. They attempted to remake.
$6 then was a lot of money. That's nothing now. So
Mark Wahlberg was supposed to do a remake of the show and it fell through. The script was out there. They did a remake in the early 2000s of The Bionic Woman, which was his girlfriend, Jamie Summers, who was a tennis player who had a skydiving accident and she suffered similar injuries where she lost an arm, she lost both legs, but instead of an eye, she lost an ear. And she also became a superhero spy for the government. Now, they did a remake of that show, The Bionic Woman, in like early 2000s, maybe late 90s, but yeah, probably around early 2000s. What made that show interesting is they, instead of simply replacing them with cybernetic parts, they used the concept of nanobots and said this person has nanobots in their system to rebuild their broken body parts, but it also gave them additional powers like access to the internet and be able to control things remotely because they had these nanobots throughout their system, and it gave them additional powers. I'm surprised that concept hasn't been redone for the modern
$6
era.
million now would be like the $600 million man.
It would be $600 billion, yeah.
So the $6 million man was on from 1974 to 1978. The actor who played basically Richard Lee Majors or Colonel Steve Austin's handler was the actor named Richard Anderson, and he died in 2017. So he died not that long ago, and he was 91 years old.
Wow.
Yeah. So Lee Majors is still alive. He was born in 1939. So do the math.
Well, that dude's crazy old.
Yeah.
He's in his 90s too.
But here's the crazy thing. He had 3 big series. He was never a movie star. He was always a television star. Big Valley, $6 Million Man, Fall Guy in the 80s.
Yeah.
There is about to be a movie about the Fall Guy that's getting ready to come out. And I don't remember. I want to say not Ryan Reynolds, but I think Ryan Gosling is playing the lead role in that. I could be wrong about that. But Tyler, you're absolutely correct. The $6 Million Man is a sci-fi show. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
It was, as I said, it was based on a novel called Cyborg, and which I read actually as a kid. It's definitely high-end sci-fi stuff when you talk about, the science that went into building him. It talks about the fact that they don't talk about it on the show that much, but his cybernetics went more than simply replacing his legs, because you can't simply replace a person's legs and have them do all the things that he could do. So his surgery is much more extensive. They go in the book, in the novel, Cyborg, they go into more detail and talk about how they had to reinforce his spine, or else his spine would have ripped apart from his surgery actually went throughout his body, not just those body parts.
Right.
Blurred Forever. He says, man, my folks in Jamaica. Yes. Another man from Bacayard. We appreciate you, brethren. My parents are from Jamaica as well. So, yes, we appreciate them. These guys are fighting. Appreciate you, man. Appreciate it.
All right, so I'm putting $6 Million Man down. I'm not going to say that he would be in my top 10 list of all time.
Definitely top 20, though.
Probably, yeah. So we've got the original.
John Fortune says his favorite Lee Major show was The Fall Guy.
That wasn't mine.
I'm not putting that over $6 Million Man.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. So basically, Lee Majors had 3 periods of popularity. In the 60s, he was in Big Valley.
Big Valley,
in the 70s, he was the $6 Million Man. In the 80s, he was the Fall Guy. He's fallen off since then. He's really not done anything since then, to be honest.
Mark Robinson says, Kirby was fed up with getting screwed by Marvel and DC. He had tons of fans that worked in TV, so I believe they treated him and appreciated his live action. Kirby was happy. Oh.
So I have 8 on my list. Battlestar Galactica, Star Trek The Next Generation, Star Trek The Original Series, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Star Trek Strange New Worlds, Lost in Space, the recent incarnation, Land of the Lost from the 70s, and B from the 80s. So I'm missing 2.
Have you seen They Cloned Tyrone yet?
Really good. It was really good, yes.
I actually started watching it. I haven't finished watching it yet.
Yo, that reminds me. I apologize for not mentioning this earlier to you, Paul. While I'm talking, if you could bring this up, my dad was a bounty hunter. My dad was a bounty hunter is a animated series that's on Netflix.
Love that show.
The original episodes dropped earlier this year in 2023. The second season dropped on Thursday, yesterday. There has been no push for this
Whoa! The
whatsoever.
second season dropped?
The second season dropped on Thursday.
Oh,
this
snap.
week. So, like yesterday, there has been no push about this series whatsoever.
Netflix
My
dropped
Dad,
the
the
ball on
Bounty Hunter, is an extremely good series. Wholesome. It's fun for the whole family.
Dude,
It's
I
about
watched that
6
show with my
episodes.
entire family.
It's about 6 episodes, between 6 and 8 episodes the first season. It's about a black dude who has a very black wife. They have 2 black kids, and the father is an intergalactic bounty hunter, unbeknownst to the kids who discovered this during the course of season 1. Season 2, as I said, dropped on Thursday. If you have not seen it, I would highly encourage you to watch it.
Look, let me tell you something. Also, slight spoiler. The mom has scenes that reminds me. It kind of reminds me of her being a Dora Milaje at the end of the film, in the last episode. She has a scene that I'm like, oh my god, she's a Dora Milaje. That's how dope the show is.
The show is
I can't say enough about the show. I absolutely love the show. I watched it with my daughter. She loved the show. I didn't know a second season came out.
It dropped yesterday. Like I said, Netflix has not pushed this at all.
Netflix has not pushed this at all because I love this show and I didn't know it had a second season.
Laz Alonso voices the dad. You may recognize him as Mother's Milk from
The Boys.
The Boys, right? We fan cast him, Laz Alonso, in the Black Cotton universe as the brother. I can't remember that character's name.
Taz.
Okay, yeah.
I think that's
so. Yeah, we said Laz should play Taz. Dude has been around for a very long time. I forgot that he was the big bad in Fast and Furious 4, which sucked.
The Latin dude.
That was the worst Fast and Furious movie, but 5 is when they got really, really good. But yeah, he was the big bad in that. He was also in a series with Megan Good that lasted only 1 season. Can't remember the name of it right now, but it was very, very extremely good. But yeah. My Dad, the Bounty Hunter is on Netflix if you have access to it.
I will be watching that with my daughter tomorrow night.
Yeah, very, very good. So we talked a lot about what was this? Foundation, which got us on a tangent of sci-fi shows.
Buck Rogers.
Oh,
snap.
Buck Rogers, yes.
How do we forget Buck Rogers?
Buck Rogers, yes.
Buck Rogers, absolutely. Shout out to Gil Gerard.
He's still alive. Yep.
Yeah, Buck Rogers. Okay, so here's the thing. Star Wars in the 1970s was a cultural phenomenon.
Yep.
It changed the game as to how people envisioned what sci-fi is. Literally, it's not even an exaggeration. It changed the game, much like how the Matrix changed the game in 1998 or whatever it was. 1999. Star Wars changed the game as to how sci-fi was interpreted. Everyone was emulating Star Wars. Battlestar Galactica came out the next year after Star Wars, and they emulated the concept of special effects with the little fighters and the lasers and stuff like that. Emulated Star Trek. What's the guy's name? Is it Glenn Larson or Donald P. Belisario that did Battlestar Galactica?
I'm not sure.
Glenn Larson, right?
I think so.
Glenn D. Larson was the producer on Battlestar Galactica. Took the concept of Star Wars and basically put it on television. When Battlestar Galactica ended, he didn't let it stop. So I guess Battlestar Galactica only lasted 1 year, from 1978 to 1979. He had a subsequent show called Battlestar Galactica 1980, which sucked bad, but it lasted 1 season, so 80 through 81. And then the following year, he came out with Buck Rogers. Same concept of sci-fi with pew pew, whiz bang, spaceships, lasers, with Gil Gerard being frozen in time in
87 or something like that.
like 1987, and frozen all the way to the 25th century.
So basically, let me interject just this. Buck Rogers was basically like Flash Gordon. The Flash Gordon movie, you have a man who's out of space and time with Gil Gerard, a.k.a. Buck Rogers. He was out of time. With Flash Gordon, he was out of space, where his normal locale. So
Yo, Pericles says the space vampire empire scared the hell out of me. Yo, facts. The space vampire episode of Buck Rogers is one of the scariest television episodes I've ever watched in my life.
I don't remember that one.
Oh my God, yeah, I'm with you on that one, dude. That episode scared the crap out of me. That one and the Jack the Ripper episode from Star Trek, the original series. That Jack the Ripper episode, Red Jack. If y'all Star Trek fans, you know what I'm talking about. That was a scary episode.
Buck Rogers was on from 1979 to 1981 with 32 episoeds.
Right.
And it was very good. So yes,
Buck because Rogers back for you younger people, when they did television shows, it would last like 22, 25, 26 episodes a season.
Per season. Not 8.
I know y'all are only used to like 10 episodes a season nowadays. But back in the day, actors actually had to work, and they put in 22 to 26 episodes a season.
See, here's what's crazy. Even though it was on from 79 to 81, the actual seasons were only 2. Season 1 of Buck Rogers was 21 eps. Season 2 was 21 eps. That's interesting.
Yeah. Mark Robbins says the best thing about Buck Rogers and Fall Guy, the sexy, voluptuous Marky Post. She's dead? She was the white Pam Grier. Damn, she was fine.
Hold on.
You remember Marky Post? She was on the lawyer show, Night Court. She played the public defender on Night Court.
Yes. Wow, she died 2 years ago.
I didn't know she died.
Neither did I. I didn't remember her from Fall Guy or Buck Rogers.
Wow. She was the white.
I remember, like you said, I remember her from Night Court.
Yeah.
She died at 70 in August of 2021. I wonder if it was COVID related. Wow. Yo, she was in Electra Woman and Dinah Girl. How about that? Also in Fall Guy.
Uh-oh. Tyler Mumford does not want to be outdone. So he's thrown his gauntlet down yet again.
Donation. It's a donation. I thought it was the trash. Don't be hitting on me.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it.
Here's what's crazy. I've got 9 series on my top 10 sci-fi list. Of that 9, 4 of them are Star Trek related. That's crazy.
Yeah, Star Trek cranks out good television, so
yeah.
I don't give a damn.
Oh, Strange New Worlds. That's the most recent iteration of the Star Trek universe. In the original Star Trek series from the 60s, Captain Kirk was not the first captain of the Star Trek Enterprise. That was Captain Pike.
No, it's Captain Robert April, technically.
Okay, sure. Basically, well, let me say this. Immediately preceding Captain Kirk was Captain Pike. Would that be accurate?
Immediately preceding Captain Kirk was Captain Pike was Captain Kirk, correct.
Okay. So in the original series, we saw Captain Pike, who was in this Professor X-esque chair, right? Who had been damaged, and then he was living in this world where these people had telepathic powers to make him think.
The Telosians, correct.
Right. So the series Strange New Worlds is about Captain Pike. That series is very, very good, as we said. There's also an animated series called Lower Decks. and it's set in the future. It's past Captain Pike's time. It's past Captain
It's set in what is quote unquote Star Trek's present.
And what live action series would be considered the present?
There is no technical live action series of the present.
Okay, so it's set in the future, right?
It's not set in the future. Like if you go timeline chronologically, well, okay. In answer to your question, the show that's set in the present, the live action show in the present, is Picard.
Okay, right. Lower Decks, the animated series, is set past that, right?
Yes, it is. So I correct myself. You are correct. Lower Decks is slightly ahead of Picard.
Right. Lower Decks, the animated series, is in the future. Okay. The animated series is really fun. It's really quirky. Paul just learned this the other day.
Hold on, I take that back. Lower Decks actually is after Picard, because in Lower Decks, Riker is still captain of the Titan, and in Picard, he has retired from being captain of the Titan. So Picard is technically before. It's in the future of Lower Decks, to be perfectly accurate.
Okay, sure. So Lower Decks, the animated series, is in the future, right? It's very fun. It's very quirky. It's very good.
Yeah.
The main actor who plays Boimler is the actor Jack Quaid, who is the son of
Dennis Quaid and Meg Ryan.
Meg Ryan, right. He's also the dude from The Boys. Okay? Animated series. Strange New Worlds is set in the past future. Okay? It's set before the original Star Trek from the 60s. What's crazy is in Strange New Worlds, they had the folks from the animated series do a live action crossover. It was extremely well done. That was episode 7 of the latest season of Strange New Worlds. So I say all that to say this: watch Lower Decks, the animated series. It's 3 seasons, and also watch Strange New Worlds. Very good viewing. Very good viewing.
And boom, John Fortune threw his hat in with the Super.
Cool.
Y'all gonna make me have to come out with some new Super Chat videos.
Yeah, right.
I think this is the most we got in Super Chat ever.
So this has been like $30, $40.
Y'all might have helped us reached our number for the month. We're getting close to it, so appreciate that.
All right, so we talked about Foundation, which led to a rabbit hole of sci-fi shows. The other show that I'm watching is Lioness.
Oh my God!
Very good show.
Can we talk about what a boon to television Taylor Sheridan has been?
Okay, let me interject. If you don't know who Taylor Sheridan is, he created Yellowstone and the entire Yellowstone universe, which includes 18 whatever and 19 whatever.
1923 and 1885.
85? Was it 85?
85, yeah.
If you watch the show,
1883 maybe. I think it's 1883.
Right. If you watch the show, The Sons of Anarchy, the original series, he was the deputy sheriff to whatever the main sheriff was. And then, spoiler alert, he was killed in a hit and run accident. Taylor Sheridan is one of the best writers out there, bar none. He wrote the movie Sicario, the original. I don't know if he wrote the sequel. He wrote Sicario. He also wrote the movie called Hell. What was it called? The movie?
It's like not Hell on Water or something like that.
It might have been Hell on Water with Chris Pines and Ben Foster.
Yeah.
2 very good. Those movies are phenomenal. He's created another series called Special Ops Lioness. If you like the series called The Unit, if you like SEAL Team 6, if you like if
SEAL
you
Team
like SEAL
6.
Team, right? If you like Valor, which I don't know why you would, but if you like special ops type shows, Special Ops Lioness is that type of show. It's basically
Is SEAL
centering
Team canceled, by the way? Just as an aside,
SEAL Team.
is
No,
that
as far as I know, it's on Paramount, so I don't think it is. No,
it's not canceled yet?
not to my knowledge. No.
Good, because I've been waiting for that show to come back.
Right. Basically, Zoe Saldana, who also was Gamora, who was in Uhura in Star Trek.
Who was on a movie called Columbiana,
which should have had a sequel, but she plays basically a CIA operator who is trying to get some intel on a particular individual, and she recruits this army lady to be a spy, for lack of a better term. If you watch the if you watch the Netflix series Lock and Key, she was the main bad person in Lock and Key. Lock and Key on Netflix is something that I also recommend, as well as Lost in Space. But not only do you have the aspect of the covert stuff, but Zoe Saldana is married to this dude who's a doctor, and the two of them have 2 kids, but she's gone all the time. So you have to deal with the emotional issues of an absent mother popping in and out due to her job and the effects that it has on their family.
Right.
Very, very good show. Also in the show is boy who's to her left, our right, in between her and Morgan Freeman. I can't remember his name, but he plays in Jack Ryan. Dude, he was also in House of Cards. Dude is great. Dude is really, really good. And I wouldn't mind seeing a show in the Jack Ryan universe just of him.
Yeah, this shows. Look, Taylor Sheridan is a special dude. His television
Michael Kelly.
shows.
I'm sorry for interrupting. Michael Kelly is the actor's name. He was he played the character Mike Kelly. I'm sorry. He played the character Mike November in Jack Ryan, and he's a CIA.
He was also in the Netflix show that got canceled because of the scandal.
That's what I said. House of Cards. He was in
House of Cards. House of Cards.
He was like Frank. What's Frank's name in House of Cards? Well, basically, he was his chief of staff in House of Cards.
Right. Lioness is an outstanding show.
Yep.
Oh, CG says I love the Unit show and Lioness have epic actors extras. Mark and I both love the Unit, starring what's my man's name?
Dennis Haysbert.
Dennis Haysbert. If
he was coming right off of 24.
If you're into espionage and military action shows, the Unit is the show for you.
Yep.
I think you can go on Hulu and you can watch the Unit. I think there might even be episodes on Tubi for free. Outstanding show. It ended the series ended on kind of a low note, which it still bothers me to this day. But the show itself was an outstanding show. Lioness is outstanding. Taylor Sheridan can do no wrong. That dude does not miss.
Yeah.
Is there a better writer in Hollywood than Taylor Sheridan? Please tell me who it is.
Well, when it comes to television series,
I'm talking television series.
When it comes to television series, Taylor Sheridan is the Stephen Cannell, the Dick Wolf of today.
He's what Hollywood now calls a showrunner.
Yeah.
A showrunner is not just a writer. He or she is a writer, creator, and producer. They envision the concept of the show, they write the episodes, and they produce the episodes. They're a showrunner. They'll even probably have some input as to what directors get picked for whatever episodes that they have. But he is a mega showrunner in Hollywood. And he does not have Does he have any bad series?
No.
He does
But
not.
think about it. He's got 4 series. He's got Yellowstone, which is phenomenal. He had 1 season of 1853 or whatever it was, and then 1923.
Right.
Now that's
And then
4
before that, he
series
even had
associated with.
Sons of Anarchy.
No, he was just an actor in that.
No, he was a writer on Sons of Anarchy. He was a writer on Sons of Anarchy as well.
Okay, that may be true, but I don't consider him for that series. That's a Kurt Sutter show. Right?
No, I agree.
So
He wasn't the showrunner of Sons of Anarchy.
Right. So I don't add him to that. But he's Taylor Sheridan is that dude, right? Oh, and that's what I was getting ready to say. Okay, a lot of people don't know who Bass Reeves is.
Oh,
Bass Reeves was a real life person who was a formerly enslaved brother who became basically a deputy sheriff or whatever you want to say. He is allegedly the basis for the Lone Ranger in real life, right?
Not basically. He absolutely is the basis of the Lone Ranger.
Allegedly, right.
It's not, no, dude, seriously. It's not allegedly. In fact, the Lone Ranger's real name in the books or whatever is John Reeves. They went so far as to even keep the Lone Ranger's real name as John Reeves because they're basing it on Bass Reeves.
So in the Yellowstone universe, as I said, there are 3 series about the Yellowstone universe. They're supposedly going to have a Bass Reeves centric show by Taylor Sheridan. So, Taylor is that dude. He really is.
Yeah, starring I can't pronounce the brother's name. Oyoko.
The dude from Guardians?
No, he wasn't in Guardians. He was in trying to think of a movie. He played Martin Luther King in the Ava DuVernay Martin Luther King movie.
Oh, David Oyelowo.
Yes.
Oyelowo. Okay. He's a good actor. He's my choice for Moses Magnum. David Oyelowo.
Moses Magnum. Okay, that's an interesting choice.
My first interaction with him was in the BBC show MI5 or MI6, where he played a spy. He's a really good actor. You may know him from the first Jack Reacher movie with Tom Cruise. He was also, as Paul just said, was Martin Luther King in the Ava DuVernay Selma movie. Yeah. And Hell or High Water was the other movie that he wrote that we just discussed. He also wrote Sicario. 1883 was the first version in the Yellowstone universe, and then 1923 comes next, as well as Yellowstone. So, yeah. Taylor Sheridan is that dude. I'm looking at his IMDb profile. I didn't realize he was in the movie 12 Strong. I didn't remember that.
So before we close this out, we need to talk about the fact that you got to get an early viewing of Blue Beetle, right?
It wasn't an early viewing. I just watched it. I just went and saw it today.
Wait, is it in the theaters now?
Yeah. It dropped yesterday.
I didn't even realize that.
Yep. I could have gone to see it, but I just, I got a pass to see it like Wednesday, but I just didn't feel like dealing with it.
Is it the type of film that I could take my 11-year-old daughter to?
Yeah.
There's not like a lot of excessive cursing or anything.
No. I mean, there's some cursing in it, and there are some deaths in it, but nothing overly gratuitous. I will say that I gave this movie on a scale of 1 to 10. I gave this movie about a 7.5. It was fine. It wasn't great. I found myself getting sleepy in it. For example, a 10 would be Captain America, Winter Soldier would be a 10 for me. Avengers. What came before Endgame? Um,
Infinity War.
Infinity War was probably like a 9, 9.5. Blue Beetle was a 7, 7.5 to me. It was okay. It wasn't horrible. It wasn't bad like Eternals. I hated Eternals. It wasn't that bad. George Lopez was hilarious in it. The main actor, whose name I don't know, he's a good-looking kid. He can act. It was cool.
I know you're. It's the same kid from the Cobra Kai television series.
I have not seen all of Cobra Kai, so I can't speak on that.
Look, if you're a fan of the Karate Kid films, you got to watch Cobra Kai because
Solo,
it is literally
Solo
a homage to it.
Marty or something. I mean, he does fine in the role. I have no issues with him or any of the.
Yeah, he's a good actor. He does good martial arts on the Cobra Kai television show, so he's athletic to do that.
Yeah, it was a decent movie. It wasn't horrible.
They're asking us about the Mantis television show. You remember Mantis?
Of course.
With Carl Lumbly?
Yes, of course.
Who played Isaiah Bradley in the Captain America Winter Soldier show?
Yo, what was the one with Arnaz in it? Desi Arnaz's son and Lucille Ball's son.
Oh my God! You talking about Automan?
Automan, thank you. Yes, not top 10, not top 20, but yes, that's old school.
So,
sci-fi.
For those who don't know what we're talking about, in 1982, first of all, 1982 was a huge year for sci-fi movies. You had E.T., you had Tron. I think didn't Raiders of the Lost Ark come out in 1982? It was a big year for movies. Tron was a big hit for Disney. First computer-generated image movie ever made. How that movie did not get an Oscar, I don't know, for visual effects. But because of the popularity of Tron, ABC created a television show called Automan because people were fascinated by the concept of computers and the internet. And Tron was revolutionary because in 1982 they're talking about the internet, and people they didn't even know what the word internet was.
It didn't exist.
The word internet didn't exist, but they're talking about the internet. They're talking about the world inside of computers.
Yeah. Video games, basically.
Right. And they did it from video games because people understood video games, but they didn't understand how the internet worked. They didn't have a word for the internet. Tron was before its time. It was like literally 20 years before its time. I love that film. I don't think it gets nearly enough props for its historical significance.
The sequel sucked.
I disagree. I like the sequel.
Okay.
Automan was sort of capitalizing on the popularity of Tron. The concept of Automan is that you have this cop who, I forget how he gained access to it, but there's this entity that comes out of the internet into
AI.
our world.
Basically an AI.
Basically an AI comes into our world. So Tron was the opposite. It was the opposite of Tron because you had a live person in our world go into the internet computer world.
Yep.
Automan was the opposite, where the entity from the computer internet world comes into our real world. And because he's an internet character or computer character, AI or whatever, he could create certain things. The most famous thing was his car.
Yeah.
He had this cool car that looked just
it
very
was kind of
futuristic.
like a DeLorean, so to speak, but
Yeah.
it had the same like blue neon that was synonymous with the Tron world. So yeah. How about it only lasted one season for 13 episodes?
Mark Robinson says, you got sleepy in Blue Beetle and you still gave it a 7.5. I don't know if a movie makes me sleepy, that would be a 4.
I mean, I get it, but it was a fun movie. It was cool. It was a cool movie. I mean, it wasn't great. It wasn't,
CGC says
it was
Eternals
not.
was really
Eternals sucked. It wasn't. I'm sorry, it wasn't.
CGC mentions Manimal.
Manimal.
Remember Manimal?
Manimal. That's
Wow.
what he means. Manimal.
That takes me back.
Yep.
Tyler Mumford agrees that he likes Tron.
I did not like that at all. Lotus, not familiar with
the
that.
car. You were talking about the car.
The car, yes.
The car was the Lotus.
Yes.
Lotus Esprit.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. We have been on here for 2.5 hours. I've
already
got to travel tomorrow, so I got to get some sleep. Wanted to thank particularly those who've given in a super chat: John Fortune, Blurred Forever, Tyler Mumford. You guys have been phenomenal tonight. Mark Robinson, really appreciate it. We do this out of pure love. We pay out of our own pockets to do this show, and the fact that you guys helped us support it really means, I can't tell you how much I really appreciate that. But we'll see you guys next time. I had a lot of fun tonight. How about you?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, the fact that we went for 2.5 hours that quickly is kind of crazy because we got an hour late start. But yeah, thank you guys for showing up. Thank those of you who donated for doing so, and have a good night.
Yep. We will. Where's my outro thing? See, I hate when they keep moving everything around and I can't ever figure stuff out. Anyway, we're out. Much love to everyone. If you haven't already, like this video. Subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. And please share it. Just share it on Facebook, Twitter, whatever your social media is. Share the videos out. We've had a tremendous amount of success growing Black Comic Lords over the last several months. On Facebook, I think we're at 26,000 followers at this point. It's huge. We're like one of the biggest Black comic book groups on Facebook. Huge deal. Appreciate that. And we appreciate your support because we do all this for you guys. So much love and respect to all of you. So we'll see you next time. Peace.